I'm Caitlin Hitchcock. I'm a senior management major here at MCB, and it is my honor and privilege to introduce our guest speaker today. But before I let him have the stage, I'm going to give you an introduction of kind of who he is a little bit. So he's actually the Vice President of Business Development for the marketing and promotional company StandOut Marketing Strategies. And he's actually also the author of a really awesome book. If you guys ask good questions, you can get a free copy. But the book is the art of the Conscientious Connector, which is all about the paradigm shift of communication and relationship. And it's not only just about like creating good relationships, but also rewarding relationships and actually learning how to sustain those with having like, meaningful relationships as well. You can't just use it in business, but career and your life in general. So it's just super awesome. Without further ado, I'm going to stop talking. All right, everyone, this is our guest speaker, David Ribble.
How you doing? How many are seniors? Okay. How many are in the Monfort school? Okay. The rest of you are at UNC? Is that right? Is that how it works? I understand that if you have as your design on things when you're a freshman and you decide to go here and you want to be a part of the College of Business, only 43% of you are going to qualify. The rest of you have to go to UNC for a year and come back with a 3.0. So I have that about right? I think so. My point is, you are all amazing because you're here. Whether you're in the Monfort School right now or you're in UNC, I don't care. I think that it's amazing that you're here. And I think that it's amazing that you bring with you very unique characteristics that no one else has. And I don't know if you got up this morning and felt like that or not, but it's very important for me to know that at least I gave you that boost of a little bit of enthusiastic confirmation that you are unique. No one in this room will ever be repeated. And I don't know how that makes you feel, but for a silver-haired old guy like me standing up here, when I talk to young kids and I know that you have your aspirations and your dreams and your desires, I just want to make darn sure that I walked away from here today reminding you that you matter. That you matter, that you have contribution, that you have things that you can do with this unique opportunity that you don't get back once it's gone. How do you feel? Do you feel special right now? Or do you feel like the world is overwhelming you? It could go either way, couldn't it? Well, I'm going to turn some things on its head a little bit in the time that we have to spend together. I'm going to talk about networking, but I'm going to talk about it more in a way of helping you see beyond the way we typically do networking in business and networking in life and careers. I'm going to turn it on its head a little bit for you because I needed that when I was your age and I didn't have it. And the majority of the people outside this room that you will have to interact with in your careers and in your businesses and in your life don't necessarily get this yet either. And so I am going to deputize you today as being people that will help me carry this good information forward for a better world. Does that sound good to you? Okay, I didn't hear you. Yes. Thank you. Here we go. I graduated from Fairmount High School, Fairmount, Indiana, population of about 1,500 if you count people on tractors as well coming through town. And it was a pretty small place. But I went to high school in the same place my parents went. I have two older brothers, Dan and John. Only John calls himself Rip. For some reason, he likes to be called Rip. It's stupid, but I do it. Okay? And we have famous people from Fairmount, Indiana. You may have heard of a fellow that was an actor with 3 films to his credit before an untimely death called James Dean. Okay? But that's me. That's me playing basketball in my high school years. And that's me graduating in 1967. And as I mentioned before, I was an athlete. I played basketball, I played baseball. I'm one of the few people in Fairmount High School's history to ever led a varsity baseball 4 years. And part of the reason I will tell you is because that's how small the school was. I played third base and I outdid a guy named Van Hasty who had been in that position for 3 years. I beat him out when I was a freshman. And I'm still proud of that. I'm still showing perfect strangers a picture of a letter jacket with 4 down the arm right there, because that's who I am and that's who I was. But anyway, James Dean, a guy named Phil Jones was a CBS correspondent, came out of Fairmount, Indiana. And a third guy that I had the pleasure of riding the school bus with is a guy named Jim Davis. And Jim Davis had asthma when he was 7 years old. His farm was about 1.5 miles from mine. And when he got asthma back then, in those days, you were supposed to just bed rest and slow down and not do anything. So his mom encouraged him to draw animals. Well, Jim got out of the asthma thing by the time he was a freshman, sophomore in high school. And he went on to play football. And then he went on to Ball State University. And he got a part-time job with a guy named Tom K. Ryan. And Tom K. Ryan created something called Tumbleweeds. It was a comic strip. It was one of my favorites. Jim kept sending ideas up to the syndicate saying, well, what about this idea? What about that idea? Could I have a comic strip about this kind of character or that kind of character? And he kept getting rejected. You will get rejected in life. It's okay. Well, one day Jim sent something up to them and said, well, what about a fat, obnoxious, lasagna-loving cat? And they said, we think you have something. And that's where Garfield came from. Now, when you go into Fairmount, Indiana from 4 different directions, you will see a sign. You will see a sign about 1 mile, 2 miles outside of town. And as you might imagine, there is a sign that's erected by the Lions Club of Fairmount, Indiana, and the sign says, Fairmount, Indiana, the home of James Dean, Jim Davis, Phil Jones. So my brothers and I went back to see my brother, my father, who was not going to be around with us too much longer, and we went back to see him. And we cooked up a couple of ideas, and one of them turned out to be this one. Fairmount, Indiana, the home of Dave, Dan, and John Ribble. And we took our picture with that. And we took the picture back to our dad. We were so proud because we said, you know, we just did this, and now people are going to know that it's your sons, Dad. It's going to be your sons that they're going to see when they come through that way. And my dad's reaction was, did you take the sign down? And we teased him a little bit and said, no, we left it up. And he said, I have a reputation in this town. Get your butts back out there and take that thing down. And we had to run out to the car and show him, and we really did. We had taken it down. But I played basketball, played baseball, did a lot of the normal things, ended up going to Chapman University. That was after Disneyland. When I was in high school in 1967, there was something called the Vietnam War that was pretty hot. And in 1968, I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to get drafted, but I was pretty sure I had to do something. And I went to Ball State University for 2 quarters. And at Ball State University, after the 2nd quarter, the Ball State counselor called me in and he said, Dave, I really like you, but I think you ought to have some time off. And I said, why? And he said, well, let's start with a D- average. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if we were going to get drafted. It was a crazy time. And my brother was just getting out of the Marine Corps, and he was out on the West Coast. And we cooked it up that we would talk to Mom and Dad and talk them into letting me drive out there just to stay for a few weeks. That's all I was going to do. And so I drove out, and the first job I got was at a place called the happiest place on earth. And I went to work at Disneyland. And from there, that became a catalyst for everything I do now. I was selling popcorn, of all things, straw hat, bow tie, stupid looking shirt, and selling popcorn on the number 2 popcorn wagon on Main Street, USA. But I got to meet people, and I got to understand how to do customer service better than any place in the world. Disneyland teaches you more than anything you'll ever want to know about how to treat people, how to make them happy, how to put them first, how to help them understand how to have a better time they didn't know they could have. That's what Disney taught me. Well, from there, I eventually got into Chapman University. And Chapman, I will tell you, is a a kind of a place like this. Is the ratio still 18-to-1 for students? Professor and students? I think that's what your brochure says. I think that's what Chapman University had. And I got to go to lunch with all of the professors. It was just what we just did just now. It was so fun and so great to do that. And so I feel like I'm home. I feel like I'm in a smaller university, of course, than the Harvards and the Princetons. But I think this is where real learning really happens, because you get to interact with all of those amazing professors. So I think that you have a good thing going here. And I hope you understand. I really appreciate it too. Went on to have some kids. We have 12 grandchildren. Now, if you look at the high part of the right-hand side of it, you will see 3 that look very much alike. Right? That's Alexis and Hunter and the other thing I wanted to point out is that you can't see it right there so well, but as it turned out, there are also 3 kids represented there that are great grandchildren. I don't know how I did that. But the point of the big family is that things change. Just like in business, just like in the Vietnam War, 1968 coming up, my friends, losing friends over there, and then other people calling or writing me and saying, don't come over. And then trying to figure out what I was going to do, whether or not I was going to join, wait for the draft, and as it turned out, I waited for the draft, and I was eligible and never got called because of the timing of things. So you all have timing, too. You also have things that you're trying to think about doing and you're not sure how to do them. Don't get in a hurry. Don't get in a hurry. Let me give you some information here. I'm going to allude to this in just a minute, but I want to try something out on it. In my introductory remarks, I just gave you over a dozen pieces of information about me. This is where I'm going to turn it on its head a little bit. Okay? Do I have your permission to do that? Okay, here we go. What do you remember? What did you record? And why does that matter? Anybody take notes? Hands higher. Be proud, come on. But the rest of you didn't, right? You're just sitting there listening to me, trying to decide whether they like to choose. Why should it matter? Okay, here's a little something that you can think about. These are the 14 things I gave you just now. Good? Okay. If I gave you all 14, then did you record them? Did you do anything with them? And will you ever need that kind of information from me? Most of you are saying right now, well, I've never met this guy before. He lives in Long Beach, California. When would I ever talk to him again? So why should I write that down? Why should I write down anything about Dave Ribble? He just came here one day and talked, and then he went home. That's how we network. That's how we go through life. We go through life with the idea that 14 connection points. Let me get this right. Okay. What happens is we always focus on what is relevant to us. Okay? What's your name?
Ryan.
Ryan? And where did you grow up?
Firestone, Colorado.
Firestone, Colorado. So I know 2 things about Ryan already, just by asking him those kind of questions, being interested in what Ryan's doing there. Everything is relevant to us, though. We go through life and we go through our daily activity with the idea that I am going to get to know you for as long as it takes for me to get information from you that I can use. Is that fair? Is that how you approach everybody? You say, okay, I'm going to go sell something to somebody. What do you want to do? I want to go sell them something. I want to find out who I need to sell to, and I want to make sure that I get the sale. That's what business is, isn't it? Just go find somebody to sell something to. Marketing is backing you up. Marketing is saying, yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to put this information out there and make somebody want to buy your product, and then you as a salesperson, you're supposed to go in there and sell it. What are you supposed to do after that? Move on. Go to the next one. Go to the next one. That's what we do in sales, isn't it? That's what we do in business. That's what we do in marketing. Okay, let's look at it some more. If you are talking about relevancy, you want to know, how will this person help me in my business and my career and my life? That's what we want to change. Now let's look at it again from a different perspective. You may say, okay, well, Dave worked for Disney, he's a speaker, presenter, he's a marketing pro, he's a sales pro, and those are all the things on the right-hand side that you would say in a relevant situation. You would look at those and say, okay, what can I get from him? Is that fair? Didn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay. And it's not wrong, except that we can do better than that. So I'm going to take this information that I'm giving you, and I'm going to give you more tools to add to them. Would that be good? Because if I can give you more tools on this, then you can be my deputies, you can be my affiliates, you can be the people that will take this and run with it. And if you run with it, and you run with it in a way that more people get this, you're going to change behaviors. You're going to change behaviors of the people you call on. You're going to be changing the behavior of the people you work for and with, and people who come to work for you. And that makes it relevant. That makes it very, very important. Instead of doing the thing that we just said, where you're looking at just you, look at what this looks like, okay? You're going to say, well, he worked at Disney. Wow, Disney people. Stories I can tell. Are there stories I know about Disney? It's relevant to me now, not to you, okay? You might say he's a speaker, presenter. Ooh, who can I refer him to? Who else would he like to do that? What can I find out for him? Not me. Marketing pro. Where can I promote his book? He just came out with a book. Where can I promote that? Maybe after you read it, you'll want to do that. That's going to be one more thing where you're going to change the relevancy from you to me. And as soon as you do that, a whole world opens up. Sales pro. Where can I promote his training? He knows actors and actresses, and he's married to one. Can I introduce him to other opportunities? He's a Chapman grad. Do I know anybody that came from Chapman? Now, these are the things that I now understand. I didn't understand when I was your age. But I do now. And I've practiced it a lot, and I get better at it every day. I want you to do the same. When we focus on what's relevant to them, the other people, great things can happen. Now, before I run this next slide, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my history. Part of my history is that in 2006 and 2007, we were very, very busy with a lot of business. But things change. And when you think that everything is rolling right along and everybody's calling you up for orders and calling you up for this and that and everything else, you think that this can't possibly stop. But then we got into a little something called 2008, the Great Recession. You guys read about that? These are the headlines that came out of the papers. In 1968, a lot of things turned upside down for a lot of reasons. And the way it affected us was, there's the last one, U.S. jobs, but unemployment rate rose to 9.9. So if you look at that, you say, okay, but we've got jobs. No, we've got jobs, but things didn't get better. Okay, things change. Things out of your control change. Things like mergers change. Things like people just shutting down one day and saying, I can't do this anymore. Well, what about my job? Well, good luck. And that's what happens. And I'm not going to give you a rosy picture here. I'm going to prepare you with more tools. Because I need for you to have those tools so you can be building this whole database, this foundation. The way of the Conscientious Connector is the complete, indispensable guide to creating the right, most rewarding, and sustainable connections possible for business, career, and life. That's my objective by writing the book and sharing this information and sharing the training that I'm developing. This can change your world, good, bad, or indifferent, but it can really mess with your head. Here's what happened for us. All of those companies that we were doing solid business with, week in, week out, week in, week out, who loved us, who the marketing department came to our house for karaoke parties. I mean, we were so fully entrenched in this, Universal Florida, Universal Hollywood, Carsey Warner. Carsey Warner, you may not know, Carsey Warner was producers for the first Roseanne show, and the second one too, I believe. They were also responsible for the Cosby Show, Third Rock from the Sun, That 70s Show, all of those shows. We did all of the promotions for all of those TV shows. We did things for the movies. Characters coming out with new characters. We had new characters for Universal Hollywood. Those are the things we were doing, and all of a sudden, in a 90-day period of time, in 2008, every one of those projects we had with them went on hold. Things changed. What do you do about that? How was I supposed to replace that business? All of a sudden, I'm sitting there with big ticket companies saying, no, we'll let you know about 3 months. We're going to move this to the next quarter. What do you do? What would you do? How do you have any kind of a backup for something like that? Went to a Chamber of Commerce breakfast one morning. Didn't want to go. I'd already figured out that I couldn't possibly replace all of the business that we had just lost. So I didn't want to go. I was on the board of directors for the Woodland Hills Chamber of Commerce, rah. I had my little name badge. I was there fully entrenched. I knew everybody in the entire room who was there. And I'd been to the last 3 Chamber of Breakfast events for the last 3 months, and no new blood walked in at all. I had not met one new person. So I got up that morning about 6 because I hadn't been able to sleep anyway. And I'm dressed and I'm kind of walking back and forth in the kitchen and having coffee and stuff like that. Gay comes out, that's my wife Gay, wave to. And she comes out, she goes, what's wrong? And I said, well, I just don't think I should go to this thing. I just don't think I should. Why not? I'm not seeing any new people. Why should I go? She said, well, I really think you ought to go. I said, your intuitive's talking about that, or are you just trying to get me out of the house because I'm in a bad mood? And she said, no, I really think you ought to go. I don't know why, I just think you ought to go. So I reluctantly grabbed my keys, headed out to the Woodland Hills Country Club for the Woodland Hills Chamber of Commerce one more time, and my objective, I will tell you, was to prove her wrong. I was going to go in there and not find anybody one more time. And I got there and I put on my little name badge, gave them 20 bucks, said hi to people. Walked in early, there were cliques already in the back, you know, people talking about last night's football game. But I decided that I was going to just really give this everything I could and just prove whether or not I was right or wrong, and whether or not there really was anybody new. So I took about 15 steps inside the front door of this thing, waved off my friends that were saying, hi, how you doing? Come on over and talk. And I pivoted to where I was facing the door where people came in. If I was going to find one person new, I was going to spot them right away. And I was going to make sure I spotted anybody who was coming in and I didn't know. I got this down. And I'm going to prove her wrong. Because that's stupid. So, take my position. They open the doors. Here we go. Here we go. People, hi. I didn't see anybody, so I started to walk by. I thought, no, you said you do this. You said you do this. Prove it wrong, prove it wrong, prove it wrong, prove it wrong, prove it wrong. Dang. There he was. Over in the corner, just sitting there, just in there, leaning against the wall, jeans, boots, you know, a flannel shirt, just waiting for this thing to start. I went right over to him and said, hi, I'm Dave Ribble from the Chamber of Commerce. You're new here. And he said, yeah, I am. Well, what's your name? What do you do? Tell me what you do. And most importantly, tell me who you're looking for. He said, my name's Bill. He said, I'm a contractor from another town, chamber member of another town. My dad started a business 60 years ago. I'm a contractor. I'm a general contractor. And he said, I also specialize in fixing flips and doing things for real estate to get them ready for sale, get houses ready for sale. He said, if I could meet anybody. And I said, well, Tell me who you want to talk to, because I know them all. He said, I'd like to speak to your best realtor. Okay. So I turned around, looked over there, and there's Dennis. Dennis is talking to somebody else about last night's football game. And I went over, I talked to John for a few more minutes, got a few more pieces of information. Walked him over to Dennis, interrupted Dennis. Said, Dennis, I want you to meet my friend John. And Dennis looks at me like, why'd you just interrupt my conversation with Bill over here? I said, Dennis, this is really important. I'd really like for you to meet my friend John. He's a contractor. He's been in contracting business ever since his dad started it. He is a member of good standing in the Chamber of Commerce in another town. He has 3 kids. He has a dog. And the thing he loves to do more than anything else is to do fix and flips and make cosmetic arrangements and changes to a house to get it ready for sale. And he told me that he wanted to meet the best realtor in the room. And I told him it was you. Dennis said, John, nice to meet you. But he looked right at me like, what in the world is wrong? Because you're not like this. You're not putting other people first. You've never done this. What is wrong with you? And I was a happy guy. I don't know why. I was trying to fight it because I was still trying to prove him wrong. But I was fighting it. I said, you are the best realtor in the room. And Dennis, I just want you to know that John is looking for you. Not me, for you. Thanks, Dave. He shakes my hand. Still and he and John launch into this conversation. As I started to step away, I felt better. I felt taller. I'm only 5'9". I need all I can get here. But I was, I felt good. I felt good. I felt warm. I felt like, wow, I haven't felt like that in a long time. Now, mind you, I'm still on a mission. Not only to prove her wrong, but I'm supposed to be there finding us business. Okay? Making it all relative to just me, my needs. But I felt so darn good about this, I didn't know what to do. I went back to my little spot. I went back to my little spot, and I'm scanning the room again, going, well, that was interesting. Prove her wrong, prove her wrong, prove her wrong. Here was Mary. Mary was standing over there by herself, just kind of, nothing to do, no one talking to her, anything. To her, I said, Mary, we okay? Yeah, we're okay. Was that bad? So Mary tells me, I said, hey, I'm Dave from Willow Hills Chamber. Mary, you're new here? Yes, I am. What do you do? And it turned out Mary is somebody who had just come to that chamber for the first time, moved into this town, and she had just come to her first chamber meeting. And she is a caterer, and she's building her business around that, and she wanted to meet the person that would be the manager of the local hotel because they need all those conference rooms filled up, and that's what she would do. And I said, well, that would be, Mary, you need to really talk to Sarah. Sarah is the manager of that particular hotel that you're talking about, and she is a member here. And I'd love to introduce you, but she's not going to be here today because I know that I talked to her about 3 weeks ago, and she was taking a night shift on the hotel for a while, and so she's not coming to these morning kind of, and I got about that much out of my mouth, and Sarah stepped up. I'm looking at Sarah. Sarah? She goes, hey, Dave, how you doing? I said, what are you doing here? She goes, I'm a member of this chamber. What do you mean, what am I doing here? I said, you told me 3 weeks ago you weren't going to be here. Oh, yeah. She said, we got this conference coming up in the weekend. She said, hubby and I decided to take the kids. And we're going to head out of town and go play at Vegas for a few days before the thing starts. Why do you ask? I said, well, I was trying to introduce you to Mary. Mary's a caterer. Mary has a daughter who loves to dance. And Sarah spoke right up and said, oh my gosh, how old is she? She's 14. Oh, wow. Well, my daughter's 13. She's been in the same dance class. I got the greatest teacher. You're going to love this one. And all of a sudden, they just arm in arm back over to get some coffee, and they were off and running. In a period of 30 minutes before this thing actually started, before Diana Williams finally said, sit down, shut up, we're going to do this thing called the official part of the networking breakfast, I did that 5 times. There were 5 new people there that morning. Kind of makes you wonder if there were 5 people before and I didn't see them. Maybe. But those 5 that I introduced to members of the chamber all hit it off. And I felt really good. I'd forgotten how upset I was when I got there. I'm feeling really good. This is the best networking thing I've ever done. So Diana Williams says, sit down, shut up, we have to start our program. And it was clear to me that the guy that was going to do the whole presentation that morning on PowerPoint about garage doors had loaded about 20 minutes worth of PowerPoint into a 10-minute presentation. You know how they do that? You know, they just keep like this. And this is another door that I did over in Greenwood. And on and on and on. So I was having trouble understanding how that was working, and I was still thinking about all of the people that I had connected that morning. But there was something else that kind of came over me. And I started to understand for the first time that we have certain kinds of habits that are partly ingrained in us because everybody does them. And part of those things that are also self-serving for us are not good things to do. And what I noticed for the first time in my life, in all of these years, when I sat down at the table and I had my food in front of me, and this guy's, sweating bullets up there trying to do his 10-minute presentation, I looked around. I had this kind of instinctive thing that said, look around and look at the room. And I looked at the room, and what I saw was people texting under the table. I saw them jumping up to get ketchup and coffee. I saw them leaning over and whispering jokes to each other. They'd already seen this presentation. They didn't need it. They didn't need a garage door today. They didn't need it. It wasn't relevant to them. And so all of these so-called professionals, as far as I'm concerned, behaving very unprofessionally. They weren't giving the due that this man paid $150 for. That's wrong. So please, no, don't ever do that. Give somebody the room and the space. Be respectful. Well, I've made all of my notes. And so now it had been a pretty good morning. I'd connected 5 people with 5 people I knew. I'd learned a lot about how to behave better. It was a pretty good morning. When Diana finished, the guy finished and Diana took back over the microphone, she said, okay, we've got just a few minutes for the raffle and the door prizes and things like that. And then at the end of it, Diana always had an ironclad idea that she should never let us out earlier or late. She's going to let us out at 9 o'clock. So it was still a few minutes before 9, and she said, is there anybody that has any testimonials? And the hands went up, and a couple of people stood up and said, I just got my hair done by Eloise. Don't I look great? And somebody else stood up and said, I had this great used car that I just bought from Phil over here. Thank you so much. Chamber member. And there was still time left, and no one had anything else to say. And Diana Williams said one more time, is there anybody else that has anything you'd like to say? And a hand went up. And it was John. It was the contractor over in the corner. And John said, I would like to say something. And they ran over with the microphone. He stood up and he said, I'd just like to say that your Dave Ribble is a class act. I've never been greeted quite that way before. And then he connected me with Dennis. Dennis and I are having dinner tonight. We're going to go look at some of his properties tomorrow. And I can't thank you enough. Dave, thank you for welcoming me. I want to be part of this chamber. All of the eyes in the room went over to me. And I thought, well, okay, that was nice. That was nice. John sits down. Dennis stands up. Dennis goes, Dave, I owe you one, man. He said, how could I possibly have ever told you this? He said, I just got rid of my contractor I'd been with for 12 years. He said, how did you know that 2 weeks ago I let him go? How'd you know I needed one? I don't know. I didn't know what to do. But Dennis stood up and praised me. Praised Dave Ribble. Thank you. He sits down, Mary stands up. Mary stands up and says, I just want to, say the same thing. Dave, thank you so much for introducing me to Sarah. And so she said a few things about that. Sarah stands up. And in the period of time left, 9 out of the 10 people that I positively influenced that morning stood up and said something about me. Did I see that coming? No. Especially with the attitude I had. Right? I didn't deserve that. But now it's like a tennis match. People standing up and everybody's looking at me. Stand up, look at me. And it was getting embarrassing. But what I came away with from that was I had totally, completely given myself over to somebody else to see what I could do for them. And in the period of time that we actually talked, all 5 of the new friends I have, not one of them asked me what I did for a living. Not one. And I didn't care. My value, my intrinsic value to that chamber and my intrinsic value to all of those people that were in that room, I didn't positively influence 10 people that morning. I positively influenced 100. Is this resonating with you? Is this making any sense for you? Okay, let's move on. Rule number 1, things changed. Number 2, there's only a few things you can do about rule number 1. And rule number 3 is that learning and practicing the way of the Conscientious Connector is the best, in my opinion, possible option. Because number 1 is going to show up again. Okay? I can almost guarantee it. This is a little ad that I put out sometimes for when I'm doing training and speaking. And I was training in a mortgage company one time on these very same principles. And what happened was, the president of the company had gone to me and he said, if you can work with Danny a little bit more, and he's really struggling. He's trying to do more loans and things, but he's really struggling. Can you help him with that? I said, I'll try whatever I can. So it was a Thursday afternoon, and we were taking a break, and we were going to come back for one more session. And I just happened to walk out into the lobby, and out into the lobby was this newspaper for the local area, I think of Woodland Hill, or West Lake Village. And I picked it up and I flipped to the second page of this thing, and this big was an ad in the corner of the paper. And it was about a tax expert that was going to speak that very night, 5 miles from where we were. And it looked to me like a very expensive ad. I mean, there was some bucks put behind this thing. And so when I looked at that, I wondered about Danny, and I thought, well, maybe Danny is really, we've been pounding on this thing for a day about connecting and networking, all of the things you can do better than you're doing now. And I thought Danny was right with me. So I showed that ad to him. I said, hey, Danny, look, you can go tonight, 7 o'clock. Tax expert has got, look how nice that ad is. They got some bucks behind this thing. There's probably, some really good reasons to go. All thanks a lot, Dave. He takes it and he goes back to his office, puts it on his desk, comes back out for the final session that day. And then we all went home. And I went back to my hotel, and I couldn't wait to hear what was going to happen with Danny the next morning. And Danny comes walking in the next morning. We're ready for round 2 of the training. I said, Danny, what happened? He goes, what? I said, what happened? The thing, the tax thing last night. Oh, so I looked at it, he said, I didn't go. Why not? He said, because I saw the guy 6 months ago. I knew what he was already going to say. My response was, Danny, who else was in the room? Forget the speaker. Who else is in the room? Who else are you brushing up against? I flew on a plane here to see, I couldn't wait to see that. Flew on a plane here with Gabe, and the guy sitting next to me on my left was a bad attitude all around. He was bad attitude. He was taking the table down, putting the table back up, putting the table down, reading all these little things, little sales. I could spot what was going on. He was a sales manager. He was a regional sales manager, and he had all these reports. He was going to this this event where all the regional managers were going to show up, and he's looking at his numbers, and he's probably trying to figure out whether or not he's still got a job. He also had a child, I found that later, who has autism. So I know a little bit about autism because I have friends that are related to that kind of spectrum issue. And I also did some work for a judge and a lawyer who specializes in autism. So for the rest of the flight, after we had the initial conversation and I finally got him to tell me a little bit more about who he was, he just flowed with information about his concerns about his job and his concerns about how to take care of a 13-year-old kid. Just sit next to me, right there. So I talked to him for the rest of the flight. The guy on this side, because we didn't even get to sit together, the guy on this side had said hardly anything to me at all. But apparently he was listening to my explanation of the way of the Conscientious Connector and how that can help Brian's business. And we got ready to leave to get off the plane, and this guy comes over to me and goes, I said, well, it's nice to meet you. We had a great time in Chicago. He was on his way to Chicago. And I started to get out of my seat, and he goes, is your book on Kindle? And I said, yes, it is. And he goes, I think I'm going to get one of them. You don't know. You just don't know. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. It's one of my most favorite quotes from Wayne Dyer. Here's some stuff that I found interesting as I was preparing for you. I wanted to kind of get a feel for what you and your world is about, because a Conscientious Connector isn't focused on here, it's focused on here. So these are some interesting statistics that I found. You saw the first one? 2/3 of college grads struggle to launch their careers, according to Jeffrey Salingo, the author of something called There Is Life After College. Have you read that? No? Okay. Here's another one. How many college grads work in a job requiring a college degree? 62. How many college grads work in a related field to their major? 27. Is that something that surprises you? Is it something that affects you in any way? We can do a Q&A if you want. You can speak a little bit later about it. Here's some more information that I dug up. Sprinters, wanderers, and stragglers. Jeffrey Salingo said that there are sprinters. Sprinters are the ones who come here as a freshman, and they already know what their major is going to be. They already take internships. They take 80% of them have at least one internship. 64% knew their major. Wanderers weren't sure of their major. Only 47% had internships. Stragglers often take time off from college to go part-time, and by the mid-20s, 99% of them have not yet earned a college degree. Okay. Here's from the desk of Dave Ribble, the straggler. 30 years old with 3 kids before I graduated. I love stragglers. We're a team. Okay, my question to you is, so what? Okay, does it matter that you are on a timetable that is a little bit different than what somebody else might say? I say, so what? So what? You're here. You're in the room. And the history of the world has never been, nor will there ever be another you. Here's something else I looked at. Class of 2022, top majors according to Forbes said math, robotics, and all of those. And as you look at it, most of it's math. But down there at the bottom, liberal arts comes flying in. Liberal arts actually is what Steve Jobs said he needed within Apple, because you're not just going to make a phone, you're going to make a phone that's easy to use. That requires liberal arts, an understanding of that. So then after I looked at these kind of things, I looked at one more that I thought would be kind of fun. And according to Kiplinger, and Kiplinger only likes to talk about money. Kiplinger, according to this, these are the top paying starting jobs after college as of 2017. It means nothing. I just thought it would be interesting to put it up there. Okay? If you're not a biomed engineer, you're still going to be okay? Yeah. If you're not into physics, are you still going to be okay? It's up to you. Right? What's the top way colleges will help you achieve your goals? They asked this question of a survey. Okay? It said, get a degree in something, 49% said that, get a more knowledge, certainly that was important. Critical thinking was the other. What do you think this one middle thing is? Why would you go to college? What else is missing that isn't listed already? Here's what they found. It came for contacts and networking, 14%. Now, if you're not even good at this, or if all you think you're going to do is say, hi, give me your name, give me your phone number, and when I need you for something to help me with what I'm trying to do, then we'll be fine. If that's how you're going to network, then that's not going to really pay much. But if you're a conscientious connector and you know how to do this, and you practice these skills that I'm talking about, everything changes. 1 out of 40 college graduates are unemployed, according to the Department of Labor, and 62% of the people, 62% of the people who have jobs don't like it. What do we do about that? I go on the 405 and I just see everybody coming my way, and nobody's happy on Monday morning. They are happy on Friday night, but they're not happy on Monday morning. Why do you have to have a job in an environment, in a company, where no one wants to be there? Why do you have to have situations where companies are built with employees who aren't sure if they're going to make the next round of layoffs? What are we doing here? So I kept looking at it and I said, well, okay, who are some of the books out there that would indicate what's going on in the world right now? Simon Sinek. How many of you heard of him? Okay, start with why. How many of you heard of Adam Grant? Okay, Adam Grant does something called give and take. He's a Wharton professor. He's a brilliant guy. He figured out that there are 3 types of people in the world. There are takers and matchers and givers. Takers will take everything they can from you. And as soon as they've taken everything they can from you, they will dismiss you. Matchers will be givers for as long as it takes, and as long as they can. And as long as they feel that you're giving back to them at least the same measure, if not better, than what they're giving you. Once that doesn't happen anymore, they become takers. So he wanted to see who was most successful, and who do you think it was? It was givers. Givers don't even think about a referral for you, they just do it. I just give you a referral. I find out as much information as I can about you. I store it in good notes. I take copious notes on you. And I go back, I put them into the contact information. And then all of a sudden something happens. Somebody says, well, you know, I grew up in Kentucky. Kentucky comes up with information about people that I know. I take that extra little step. It takes me about 10 seconds to load in some additional information that I learned about you. And what will happen is it will pay off for me for the rest of my life, as long as I want to use it. And the faster you get at this, the better you get at it, and the faster you can load that information in, and then you can categorize. You guys know this stuff far better than I do. You know you can slice and dice this stuff any way you want. That's what I want you to think about doing. Once you get good at this, it will set you apart from everybody else with whom you compete for the rest of your life. 3 things to live by right now. Don't let the internet disconnect you. Always know what motivates people and become an empathetic listener. Okay. Don't let the internet disconnect you. The people that wrote the middle book, the Conscious Capitalism, John Kay and Raj Sisodia, what they talk about is that the internet has become this whole other world that we're trying to now cope with. I think, you know, the people from Facebook are going to go before Congress, and we're also trying to figure this out. And there's more reports coming up all the time about stress and all of the things where you're locked into a machine or something with buttons on it, and you're not talking to each other so much anymore, and you have trouble with presentation skills because you're not used to doing what I'm doing right now. I want you to get back to that. I want you to disengage this thing and start engaging in this. Getting to the heart and soul of someone. Finding out what you can do to be of benefit to them, because it will lift you up. But they said that Tim Berners-Lee is credited with inventing what would be later termed the World Wide Web. And he talks about it being more important to the printing press and everything else that has come along in a long time. We also see this. Every 60 seconds, 4,000 people visit Amazon. Apple users download more than 51,000 apps. Does this stuff astound you? Twitter users, there were 347,000 tweets. Skype users, 110,000 calls. What do you think we're doing? You think this is taking the place of this? And is it hurting us? Is there a common balance that we need to have so that we continue to look into each other's eyes and say, what can I do today to make your life a better life? What would happen if we had conscientiously connected whole companies that operated this way? Why couldn't you go out tomorrow and build one? I want you to do that. And then hire people that get it. They actually think the same way you do. Let me go on with this. I want you to also remember that you have to motivate people sometimes. And sometimes you don't know what motivates them. I didn't know about the guy next to me and what motivates him until I learned more information about him. I went to a creativity seminar in Breckenridge, Colorado years ago. And I befriended a gal that was doing one of the Outward Bound things with me. And we got to this suspension bridge we were supposed to go over to get to some elements we had to test ourselves on. And she stopped dead in her tracks at the suspension bridge. I mean, this girl was just bubbly and happy and excited and fun and energetic and just smart and just such a wonderful human being. And she stopped at that bridge and would not walk on. And it took some digging, but I found out that when she got married, her husband, her new husband, talked her into going out on a suspension bridge for the wedding pictures. Later divorced. And so now she's walking right up to this suspension bridge, and that suspension bridge represents bad things that happened to her. And so she took that very emotionally. Other people would look at that and say, well, you're just afraid to go across the suspension bridge. What's wrong with you? But because of just knowing how to ask questions and get her to talk and share information with me, what happened was that I learned a lot more about what really motivates her. And in business, when you figure out what your client's real motivation is for trying to do a certain project, for trying to launch a new product, for building on this or building on that, your job, if you're a marketer like me, is that I need to get under your skin a little bit first and find out exactly what you're really trying to accomplish. If I can figure that out and I can bring a delivery system to you of how to get that handled and how to make that work, then we've got something. Business students, you're going to run into that. Go to the core. Go to find out what it is they want, what it is they need. And then start building your response back on that. They'll think that you're a genius. They think that Gate's a genius. I think she's a genius because she comes up with this stuff. I get the information and she brings in the solution. We have clients that will exhibit at a trade show. I was talking about this earlier with Dakota. 90%, I'm not sure about this, it's not official, you can quote me though if you want. I think between 85 and 90% of the people who exhibit at a trade show, you've been to trade shows, right? Okay. I think that 85 to 90% of the people or the companies that are represented in a trade show have no idea why they're there. I really don't. Because what they'll do is they'll set up their pretty little display, they'll put their brochures out, they'll put the little jar with the chocolates in it, they'll have a little drop box for your business card, they'll have some brochures, and they'll just stand there and talk on their cell phone because they think that that's all they're supposed to be doing. Gay and I get a hold of the same kind of client. We find out what the exact objective is. What the exact objective might be is that they're spending $50,000 to go to this thing for 4 days with 6 people that are going to work the booth. They're going to wine and dine all these customers. They're going to do all these things and not even think for 1 minute how much money they're really spending and how much more business it's going to require to put that money back in the bank. They don't even think about it. They just think if they don't show, people will think they wouldn't have a business. We get in there and we say, okay, can you name the top 25 people that you want to talk to at this thing? When the show opens. Yeah, we know who it is. Oh, great. Are you just going to roll the dice and wait for these people to show up or not? Well, yeah. Yeah, I think so. So, well, what if we could guarantee that when the doors open, they come to your booth before they see anybody else? What if they come to your booth before they even see your competitor's booth? What if they scream to get to your booth? What if they run to get to your booth? And they look at us and they go, you can do that? Yeah, you can motivate people. You can actually cause them, give them all kinds of reasons to want to be there to talk to you. Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. But that's another story for you for about motivating people. You have to understand what it is they're doing when you look for it. Always know what motivates people. Okay, empathetic listener. I need my volunteer. Where's my volunteer? Yeah, come on. We talked earlier. Thanks for helping me with this. Okay. Tell them who you are.
My name's Elijah Thompson. I'm a business management student here, a junior.
And you want to fly jets?
I would like to fly jets. That'd be awesome.
And you're going to find out in September?
September, yeah.
How did I know that?
Because we talked earlier.
Yes, we did. Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm going to do a little something with you. And I want you to just, if you would please, just kind of watch how this can work and see if it maybe is something you can use today and take with you. Would that be okay? Okay. Tell me your name.
Elijah Thompson.
Where are you from?
Cold Springs, Florida.
Where's that?
That is north of Miami, about an hour.
And you lived there before, or you live there now?
I lived there before I came out here.
Okay, you still live there?
Technically on paper, yes.
What do you major?
Business management.
Why did you choose that?
I really found it interesting how businesses are run all around the company, and I just grew up going there, so it's really interesting.
What kind of company does your father run?
He owns a graphic design company.
How long has he had?
Since I was born.
Were there other people in the company? How big is the company?
I started with his father.
Started with his father. So that's your grandfather. What was your grandfather's name?
Richard Thompson.
Great. Where did he come from?
He came from Michigan.
Michigan. What part? Not sure?
I'm not sure I'm listening, but
Okay, and what about the rest of your family?
father's from Michigan as well. My mother's from California.
What do you like to do when you're not trying to imagine flying jets?
What do I like to do? I like to mess around the stock market. I like to play racquetball. Do lots of
Are
things.
you a good racquetball player?
I like to think so, probably not.
Probably not. So are you single?
I'm not, no.
You're married?
No.
Did I miss something? Are you single?
I guess I could be, yeah. If I have a girlfriend.
You have a girlfriend. You're doing PR right now, aren't you? You're making sure you don't get in trouble when this plays back. I understand that completely. Well, thank you very much. It was really nice meeting you. I appreciate it very much. Give him a round. Okay, class. What can you tell me about him? Is the dice going? Is the mic up? Yeah, help me out here. Anybody got a hand? Yes?
He has a girlfriend.
Yes? That's the first thing you thought of. Okay, answer.
His grandfather started a graphic design business that his dad works in.
Okay, can you say it louder?
His grandfather started a graphic design business, and his dad works at it.
Okay, yes ma'am.
His grandfather's from Michigan, also his dad, and his mom's from California.
Ooh, now you're double dipping here. You're leaning in on it. That's great.
He's from, I think he said Coral Springs, Florida. I couldn't understand if it was Coral or Coal. So,
Okay, it's Coral Springs?
Cold Springs.
Coral Springs. He's just from the south. He doesn't know how to talk.
flying jets in the Air Force, and he chose business management because he finds it
Just
interesting.
one. You're cheating. You're showing up. Okay, yes?
I know somebody on campus who could probably whoop them at racquetball.
Oh! That's an inside,
It's not me.
that's an inside job. Yes, sir?
Where he lives is about an hour north of Miami.
Okay, great. Now, has anybody ever been to Coral Springs? One? That's it? Two? Anybody ever played racquetball? Hands? Okay. Anybody ever had a girlfriend? Okay. How many questions did I ask? Ah, you didn't count that either, did you? Okay. I probably asked a dozen, would you say? I did an experiment one time with a friend of mine just standing right back here. We were at a networking event, and I said, Tim, I want you to just stand there and just listen. I want to try something out, and I want you to just count how many questions. Okay. So I went up to somebody, and I started the process of interviewing them, just much like I just did just now. And for every answer that I got for every question, I asked another question relevant to the first question, or to the answer. Does that make sense? What's your name? Where have you been? Where do you live? Where'd you grow up? So I just started doing that, and by the time I got tired of asking questions, I had asked him 35 questions. But the real funny part about this whole story, and the reason I tell you this, is because about 3 weeks later, Tim was talking to the same guy, and they were talking about all kinds of stuff. And out of nowhere, Tim said that this guy said, he said, I talked to Dave Ribble the other day. So we were at a networking thing, and he said, Dave's the best conversationalist I've ever met. He didn't ask me anything. I never answered a question. I just asked him 35 straight questions, and we went on our way. And I'm a great conversationalist, apparently. So, empathetic listening. The way the Conscientious Connector, as I said, late paradigm shifting, indispensable guide, creating the right, most rewarding, and sustainable connections. That's what's most important, sustainable ones. So, meld that into your brain. Sustainable is what's going to pay off for you over and over and over and over again. The networking where you throw a net, pull whatever is out of the water, you go through it to get what is valuable, and you toss everything back, is the way most of the people outside this room network. You're better than that. And this will take you far. It will take you far. Not in just business. It will take you far in your career. If you're applying for a job, you have an option of doing some homework or a lot of homework, or, in my opinion, smart homework. And if you start thinking this way with everyone you engage in, and if you're going to apply for a job, it may be this set of rules that you're supposed to follow, but it does not mean you can't do more homework. Okay? When you get into the interview, if it's a room with anything on the walls, those represent who that person is you're across from. Talking points. Talking points with everything you ask. Why can't you engage in a question and answer with them? Why does it just have to be them asking you? There are many, many tools for this, and as you start to get into it more, as I said before, it's going to help you. The people that have read the book so far are telling me different things. One of them is a seasoned professional who said, man, I wish I would have had this when I started with it, but I'm glad I have now. Another one, the bottom one, talked about, I didn't know that I could actually work for a company and hit sales, but still work for a company that mattered more about bigger things as well. And that really hit me between the eyes, because I wanted that. I wanted millennials to understand I'm defending you out there. I'm giving people reasons to want to hire you. And part of it's going to be that I expect you to come right behind me with all these great skills, so that I get to say, I told you so. If you would like more information on me, if you would like to get a free download, it's 26 ways to become a standout. I can give you the free download. You just write it down, dave@daveribble.com. Put in there UNC 26. That will tell me that it was you. But I'd also like to invite you to maybe become on my newsletter list so that we can talk back and forth. I want to talk with you. I want to be able to connect with you. I want to be able to hear what's going on, what's working out there, and what's not. And I'd also like, in a bigger picture, to have a conscientiously connected consortium of brilliant minds that I'm standing there looking at. I would love for us to take this further into other colleges and universities and to companies. Why not? Why can't we do that? One road ends, another begins. I'm going to finish with that. If there's any other QAs we can do, I really appreciate your time.
Class, please go, and if you'd like to stay and ask questions, please go. And Caitlin, can you pass the microphone or throw the microphone?
Thank you.